us anything that I say at all. I have no
Yeah.
idea. Someone like yourself will present me with a question. I watch my brain turn the question into a picture or a scenario, and then I describe the outcome, and then that's the end of it. Then I go on to the next question, but I have no idea what I've said because I don't say things from memory ever.
Right.
Any answer that I give to any question comes from now. I don't remember that, oh, someone asked me that 2 weeks ago and this is what I said, or I asked this question to myself 50 years ago and this is the answer. That doesn't happen like that with me. Every time you ask me a question, it's a brand new question. And I put the question into a scenario that I can watch, and I watch the outcome, and then I describe the outcome, and that's where my knowledge comes from. And I don't know where that comes from either, but, well, I do, but
It must be your spirit. It must be
it's spirit, not my spirit. It's just
spirit.
spirit, yeah. And to answer your question, in the same vein, actually, it seems like there's no point to life when you think that your life is all about you, because it isn't. Life lives through us, and it has an agenda. It's trying to know everything about itself, and through us, it would seem that it's learning about what happens when you allow physical mentality to go unchecked. It goes insane, and we start doing insane shit. Um, that's all there is to it, really. But life, you have the privilege of life knowing and learning about itself through you and through me and through trees and through everything else out there that life is living in. Um, so even when you're at your lowest and life just doesn't seem to be worth living, that's the ego wondering what that's all about, because it doesn't make sense. When you look at life from an ego viewpoint, none of it makes sense. Once you see it as just one life living as one, and all of the different forms within that life, just like you, if he pulled you apart, your body, you're going to find everything from brain cells and nucleuses and nuclei and bacteria and parasites and organs and blood vessels, and these are all different species, because none of them are like each other. A kidney does not resemble a brain by any means, and a brain doesn't resemble a clitoris by any means. They're all very different things, but together they make up you. Let's take a nipple. Let's say your nipple decided that life isn't worth living anymore because it just can't figure itself out. Why is it hanging there all day long? It doesn't seem to have any purpose, so it kills itself. Now you've got a cancer nipple, you see, because it doesn't realize that it is only alive because of you.
Right.
And you are living it to some point through your nipple at some point. You get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life is living through us, and it's well on track, and it is observing everything that's going on. And once it's nutted all of this out, it will change the human brain, and it will go in a different direction. It will create a brain that doesn't go insane. It will recreate, because in the scheme of things, we've only been here a millionth of a second as a form, and it's still getting worked out. You see what I mean? So once again, you got to get out of your own body and see that, yeah, this body is as matter. It's only going to be around for a very, very short time, but the life that is in it is always there, and it's very active, and it has an agenda, and it's not desperately, it is passionately trying to know itself. But when you go back to ego, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. Why am I here for a short period of time, most of it being miserable with short instances of joy, and then die at the end of it? What the fuck's that all about? So it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
And
No, but what you said, just that made a lot of sense. You said before, because I said it's your spirit. You said not my spirit. How do you look at that? How do you look at spirit? My spirit, your spirit, spirit. Like, is it all one spirit? I mean, it obviously is at the end
Let,
of the day.
let's
That
take
we
the
have.
ocean. Let's take the ocean as an example. If you look at the
Mhm.
ocean as, say, being spirit, the universal consciousness, same thing. And we'll go back to the sponge thing. So if you consider a sea sponge at the bottom of the ocean created the sea sponge. It wasn't created outside of the ocean. All of the elements within the ocean created a sea sponge. And the sea sponge, so now the ocean saturates the sea sponge, and the sea sponge is in the ocean. So the ocean is in the sponge is in the ocean. The ocean created the sponge. When the sponge falls apart, it goes back into the ocean. And of course, you have billions of sea sponges at the bottom of the ocean, but they all share the same mind. They all share the same water. They all came from the same ocean. They all die into the same ocean. They were all created by the same ocean. They are all saturated with the same ocean. So that is the life as an ocean. And if the sea sponge starts to think that it's a separate entity and the little piece of ocean in it is not connected to your little piece of ocean, now it has a problem.
Now we have an ego.
Now
We
you
have
have an ego. There we go. Now you're cooking.
an ego sea sponge.
Yeah.
See, if I was a sea sponge, it would just be much easier to understand in this crazy ocean up here. That makes sense. Okay.
So if you were to see the ocean as being self-aware, as is your spirit, it has to contend with all of these creatures that it is living in and through. And that's the situation with people. It's experiencing itself through all the things that it is in and that it has produced.
If you start to become aware of yourself as that spirit instead of my spirit, and then everybody around you, right? If you're in close contact with people all the time, that's where you feel. I mean, how does that work? How you feel everybody's, like, I can walk into a room and I can tell you who's thinking what, when, and where they're going and I literally have to push myself out of it in order not to get saturated by it. I have a friend of mine, a good friend who lives up in Washington, and she used to call me all the time going, make it stop, make the voices stop, make the noise stop. She's like, I walk into a room and I just get bombarded by all the emotion of air. She goes, and I can point at any one person. And if I walked up to them and said, hey, are you, and repeated what I'm hearing inside my body, they would just stand there like staring at me, crying or whatever, because I just described their whole. And oh, she's like spot on every time she does it. She's like, can you just make it stop, make it shut up? And I'm like, dude, that's yours. I don't want it. But now all of a sudden I'm there going, holy crap, can you just make this stop? Because you feel everything. Is that what that is? Is becoming
Yes,
so aware of spirit
that's
that.
that's what's happening. However, the problem isn't that. The problem is instead of being fascinated by it, the ego is responding to it negatively.
Oh, wow. Okay. So just be fascinated by it.
Fascinated by it. That's all there is to it. I had this discussion yesterday with a guy, strange man actually. He's an Indian airline pilot that lives in Qatar. Weird, but anyway, he, in one day I'll talk to an Indian living in Qatar, and then the next hour I'll be talking to I don't know, an Eskimo living in northern Alaska, and then
Oh,
I'll be
amazing, Tom.
talking to someone like you in Utah, and then I might be in Poland. I was speaking to a guy yesterday afternoon who's in Transylvania.
Wow.
I call him Dracula, but he he doesn't get the joke. But anyway,
Really? Oh, how funny.
I know.
Huh.
See, Dracula's like a hero over there. They don't see it as they don't get
Oh,
the movies that we get. But let's
right,
put it that way.
right, right.
But anyway, what was I getting at with that? Okay, we were talking about people being offended, and he said the reason he's attracted to my videos is because I cut through all the bullshit. I just say it how it is. I keep it as clear as possible, whether or not people get offended, and that's what he likes about it because he's in his past he's just tried to talk absolute truth and what he feels, but he was offending people, and he stopped doing it. He stopped being himself, and
Oh,
it's killing him. So I pointed out it's not possible to offend anyone. It just simply isn't possible. What's happening is you will say something, they will respond to it negatively with their ego, and that their response to what you said is what they feel as being offended. It's not you that's offended them. They're offended at what they've attached to your words. They're offending themselves and blaming you. Anyone with clear vision would see that happening and they wouldn't do it. But these people don't have clear vision. Very few people do. So it's not possible to offend someone. People offend themselves by the way they take what you're saying. So when you walk into a room, same thing, and you're getting everybody's you're feeling everybody's status in life. You're feeling where they're at emotionally, mentally, and then you reel back. Oh no, that's the ego. You know, you need to put your ego into the picture. I can feel all of these things coming from these people, and oh wow, look at how my ego is responding to that. Isn't that fascinating?
right. Curiously observe that.
Yeah,
Okay. Huh.
isn't that cool?
It's funny, actually. Because sometimes it wears me out. I mean, I told you, I know you probably don't remember, but I told you about the Swede I work with,
Yes,
who's our pastry chef dude. And
through a tantrum.
I still can't talk to him. Like, I have no, he'll walk into the room and I just look down, I'll move my cutting board. I don't want to be near this dude because he just sucks the energy right out of you. And the last time he threw his tantrum, like I felt like I almost died because it just like drained me so. And probably part of the detox that I went through was having that experience of being so drained from that. And he walked in yesterday, and the first thing he did, he starts talking to you like nothing ever happened. You're my best friend, and he over explains and over talks everything. So it's rough talking to him anyway,
Yeah.
and you have to just stand there and like listen. It makes it makes your eye twitch, and I swear I make that face at him sometimes, and he'll just look at me like, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "No, I better go." But now I just don't even. And it's like I've made a choice that I don't have to participate in your nonsense, I guess. And I don't know that that's okay. I don't know, like, my husband's like, can you just try and talk to him? I'm like, no,
Do you need
no,
to for the company to keep running the way it runs? Do you need?
no,
No. Well, fuck it.
no. I needed muffins from him yesterday, and I told the sous chef to go find the muffins. I was like, I'm not gonna, like, if they don't get muffins tomorrow morning, I don't think I care. You go handle that. He goes, no, like, he didn't want to talk to him either. He's like, the dude's insane. Like,
There we go.
everybody else had this issue. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So, but
Why
okay.
is he still there? He must have some
Um,
kind of quality.
no. So you cannot find help to save your life up here right now.
Okay.
Help is in any industry, in any and there's so many illegals that have come across the border, and there's companies who place the illegals illegally, legally. I don't know how that works. So we have to go through these companies to get, and half of them don't speak English, and the other half that do, no skills. Like, I mean, it's crazy. So when you can find a person who speaks English and has a trade, so Johan's been pastry chef his whole life. And, they look at me and they're like, "You're a pastry chef. Why don't you do it?" And I'm like, I won't touch it. Like I'll stand here and prep all day long for you guys, but I will not feed people stuff that I know was killing me.
Mm.
I won't do it. So we have Johan.
Oh, well, there we go. So that's the payoff.
Yeah. Is that a payoff? That's what you see. You look at it positively, where I'm like, that's the payoff. You're like, that's the payoff. No.
For now. Similar thing is happening here. Just as I've been away for a few weeks, as you know, in retreat. But on the way back, I stayed at a hotel, which is about 700 kilometers from here. I drove and I stay there whenever I go through that way. This is going down into Denmark and then into Germany. And I stay at hotels that I know are nice, that I know are good. So I stayed at this hotel place called the Lund, which I really enjoy. It's got a great place. It's lovely. It's always clean, and the staff are fantastic. And it's got a gymnasium there, and the rooms are great, and the views are fantastic. And they went one step further, and they started to they put on a cleaning crew made up of, I don't know what you'd call them, illegal immigrants that have become legal now, giving them a chance. So I stayed there so they hired them as a cleaning crew. When I went there and your room is ready, GM, blah, 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 I went into my room. Dirty used condom on the floor next to the bed.
Ah,
Human excrement on the floor in the bathroom with bits of blood in it. Toilet seat covered in God knows, I don't know what the fuck it was, but it was not good. And this is the cleaning crew that they've just hired. And I said, "Look,
wow.
I don't know what you're paying your cleaning crew, but they're ripping you off. I want you to come and look at this room." He goes, "Oh, we'll send someone else up to clean it." I said, "No, you can come and fucking have a look at what you've just put me into." And I said, "First things first, that's a used condom. That's not mine. That's on the floor. When did the cleaners come through?" And he said, "Look, I'm so embarrassed." He goes, "To be honest, you're the third complaint we've had in the last 24 hours. I don't know what
Wow.
to do." And this poor bugger almost broke down crying in front of me. And
Oh.
I found myself counseling this.
Oh.
So I got them sacked. And
And hallelujah. Like they shouldn't
yeah,
be.
but
Oh,
it's all over the world at the moment.
yeah, I think so. And I think it's just going to get tougher and tougher from what it sounds like from our vantage point.
Mm,
So in that vein, like why is all this caused? So and I don't know if that's an ego perspective, what we're being told, right? The narrative is that, there's 13 families and right, the cabal and the Illuminati and the top 13 who own all the banks and, Jekyll Island, the whole storyline, all the way through to Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and whoever around the world that's tied to all of this nonsense. How does from spirit? I mean, it's all part of the same place. Why would so this is where it probably gets convoluted in my head because of the teachings of my childhood and the Bible and my granddad being a preacher and whatever. How does a God that loved you so much? How does spirit? How does I relate to it differently now, which is this is I stopped doing all of my videos like totally. I'm like until I can figure out who I am and what I'm doing. I don't even know what I believe anymore. I'm just like, okay. But that's a whole different story. How does a God that is so good? How does spirit? I mean, it's trying to sort itself out and feel all this stuff or find out, live all these different things by having one human annihilate another, by having one human, like it doesn't make sense to me. And that could be my ego looking at it, I guess. I'm trying to think through it maybe. But the stuff that's going on with the children and um, the human trafficking and the pedophilia, the junk that's going on at these high, with these high level families, and how do you explain that away? And I don't think you explain it away, but how do you understand that? I can't understand that. Is there a side of good and a side of evil that are they come from different places? So the good didn't produce the evil, or how does that work?
If you take all of humanity off of the planet, where do you think you would find good and evil?
Well, so according to some, on other planets, as above, so below. If it's here, it's there too. No? Yes?
No, it's human. It's us. We're the ones that do it. But once again, you see, it hasn't always been like this. It's the insanity has crept into. Okay, let me go back. Not that many thousands of years ago, at the end of the day, we would have all had our children and we would all be sitting around a campfire in the middle of the village listening to the elders. And the elders would be teaching us how to be peaceful, how to work with each other, how to be respectful to the animals that we have to eat, how to how to work with the moon and the sun and the tides and all of the rest of it. And from all of that, everything is even, everything is good. We don't, this is going to sound bad, but it's a fact. Back then, you wouldn't keep children alive that obviously shouldn't have been born, children
Right.
with no legs and half a brain. Today, you can't do anything about that. Not long ago, you just leave that to nature, and most of the time, they would be stillbirths anyway. And
Right.
everyone would be like, well, that's nature just does that because that wasn't going to be a good vehicle. That wouldn't have just been a bad life for the child. It would have also made life almost unbearable for everyone around it.
Can
And
I stop you for 2 seconds? Don't lose your thought, because you know how this goes. My son is one of those.
okay,
When he was born, his heart surgery, his hip was out of joint. They never found it. His whole life has been, by most accounts, probably miserable. And he used to tell us, I am not supposed to be here. I was
exactly,
supposed to dip in and dip out, is what he called it. I was supposed to dip in and dip out, and you guys made me stay here. So now you have to deal with it.
exactly. And he's not a bad one. Obviously,
Now,
there's a lot worse, and
yeah,
they're not happy. They're sitting in chairs, there's drooling all over the place. People are staring at them, and the ones that don't stare at them look away from them. They know,
yeah.
and we're just fucking cruel. So, not too many thousands of years ago, it wasn't like this. Religion happened. No, you can't do that. God gave you that child because he's punishing you. Fuck off.
Or teaching you.
Teaching you. Fuck off again. Okay? It makes me angry. It does. Religion is the worst evil that's ever befell this planet.
I would agree.
So that's the answer to your question. We Everything that is good and true and real has become illegal. Let's
Mm,
look at a man. Someone attacks you in the street. Your husband gets into a fight to protect you, and the person he's protecting you from, who had a gun to your head, your husband kills him. Who's going to go to jail? Your fucking husband.
yeah,
What the fuck? You see,
yeah,
that's how insane we are, and we can go into a million different examples of our insanity, but it hasn't always been that way. So we're having a glitch, and in the
I
scheme
know.
of things, the glitch is less than half a second. In the scheme of things. So once again, you're seeing it through an ego, and an ego has time connected to everything it looks at,
Yeah,
and therefore it becomes impatient. Compared to eternity, if it took a billion years for us to correct ourselves, it's still a smidgen. It's still less than a trillisecond in comparison to eternity, which is, life is eternal. It's not going to go anywhere. Um, That's all there is to it, really. So it's not evil. It's just gone wrong. There's nothing out there
Mm.
making this happen except us. So
No.
when you have when you have an insane generation creating an education system for the next generation, it's going to be friggin' insane. So the next generation isn't insane
Mhm.
until they go to school, and then
Yeah.
they become educated to be insane. And of course,
Yeah, like,
they don't
that's
see
what's
that there's
happened.
sorry.
That's what's happened.
That's what's
That's
happening. So that's your answer, and it will stop. I'm sorry about your son, by the way, but you understand what?
well,
Yeah.
we've learned our lesson, and so has he.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's sad.
Uh,
It really saddens me. This one.
uh, I hate to say it, but it cracks me up at this point. I'm just like, holy cow! Like, what on earth are we doing to each other?
Well, the thing is, when you step out of the bucket of, let's say you were born and brought up in a bucket of diarrhea. One, I'll leave you with that one for a second.
I think I was actually, so that's
most
lovely.
most of us have.
Yeah, yeah.
These
And it,
days now, when we start talking about love and people start asking me to help them and things, I go, look, I don't have to like you to love you. The fact that you have stepped into my life and brought your own bucket of diarrhea with you, and you're asking me to put my head into that bucket of diarrhea and
yeah.
open my mouth while I'm in there to talk to you,
Ugh,
and you don't think that's love? So
wow.
that's how it is with people. Anyway, so we're all in a bucket of diarrhea. My point is this, though: if you're in a bucket of diarrhea, you've been brought up in it, and someone manages to pull you out, or you manage to pull yourself out, you're not going to spend the rest of your life dipping your finger in there and looking at where you used to live and tasting it. You're not going to go doing that. You're going to be happy that you're out of there and start enjoying your new life.
Mm,
Once you step out of the insanity of humanity, your bit is done, and you just stay out of it. Don't go back into it. Don't start worrying about it. Don't start getting upset about it. Once again, that's just you responding to the past, responding to memories in an adverse way. You can
this is
stop.
why this is why monks go hiding in a cave.
Yep, it
It
is.
is.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
Just until you get strong at it. Once
right.
once you've crystallized your position as spirit, once you're always watching Christy, always from a separate
Oh,
viewpoint. Once you start to watch Christy being annoyed and you start to watch her getting upset, you just laugh because you'll see these thoughts upsetting these thoughts, and then these thoughts getting shitty about these thoughts, and then these thoughts asking questions about why these thoughts get shitty about these thoughts. You're back in the bucket of fucking diarrhea again at that point, aren't you?
yeah.
So once you're out of that, of course, that all stops for you. Christy might keep thinking like that, but so what? It's got nothing to do with you anymore. You allow her to do that because it doesn't matter, because you can see reality, you have clarity. At that point, other people who are ready for that step will gravitate towards you, and they will ask you, how are you so calm amongst all of this? How can you be so at peace and happy and laughing when all of this chaos is going on in the kitchen? And you'll go, do you really want to know? And they'll go, yeah. So then you go, well, when we're on a break and we're having a coffee, we'll talk about it. And
Yeah.
you'll start to talk like me. Unfortunately, it'll just be hopefully not so much swearing, but
No, there's some of
you'll
that.
just say, you say it in your own words. When my thoughts start getting out of hand, I have nothing to do with them. It's like a child throwing a tantrum. You put it in its room and you don't give it any freedom until it behaves itself. And when my thoughts get angry, when my thoughts get upset, when my thoughts get shitty, I don't pay them any attention because that's not going to do anyone any good. At that point, the person you're talking to will sit back for a moment and go, fuck, wow, because not many people, think about thinking. Not many
Right.
people realize they are thinking. Not many
Right.
people know that their thoughts have taken over their lives. Something that they
Mhm.
weren't born with has come into their life and taken over. And most of it is other people's shit. You got to
All
get,
of it.
got to get all of it. You got to get out of there, and then you'll be free from all of that, and you'll be in a position to share that with other people if you want to. But you
With something with somebody like the Swede in the kitchen, because I've become like so aware of his presence when he walks in. And I don't know, there's something there with this that I'm just not getting, or I'm not. And I stood yesterday, so my cutting board, his station was here, and my cutting board was on this side of the same table. And he comes in later than I do, so I take up this whole area until he shows up, and then I try and consolidate real quick. Um, and he comes in, and I'm just like, he tries to start yakking at me, and I'm like short, quick answers, and I'm like, okay, observe yourself. I'm like trying to, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get myself into a place where I could just observe, like in the moment, in real time, what was going on. I was so like opposed to his appearance into the kitchen.
got.
I was like, dang it, why did you show up so early? I needed one more hour. I would have been out of here. But I couldn't get myself to a place where I could get still enough. Maybe is that what I'm like? I couldn't get in that space
Mm.
where I could just observe myself, observing what was going on around me. Fix it.
We'll get there. Okay.
Fix it. Oh no.
Have you seen these documentaries where you see old Hindu aesthetics sitting there with needles through their tongue and needles through their cock and
I
all.
don't have to do that, do I? No.
Yes, yes, getting back to the nipple thing. No,
No.
no, what I'm getting at there
Nipple.
is you learn to be still with very, very small, easy things first, like jumping into a cold shower and not responding. You get
Yeah.
used to that first. You get used to not moving. You still feel the icy cold. Like I have a sauna every day on my sauna, which is next to the ocean. I'm in Sweden, so the ocean is fucking freezing. I have a steel bucket that I throw in the ocean and I pour cold water out. And when I've come out of the sauna, which is usually around 70 degrees Celsius, which is 70, 140, it's about 180 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
So I walk out and I don't want to, but I have to pick this bucket up and I pour the freezing water over myself. Now, every cell in my body is squirming. The ego is trying to jump out of my ear and my fucking asshole just wants to get away. But inside, nothing. Just pick it up,
Be
feel the
still.
water, feel the ego squirming, walk back in. So that's one way of doing it. They then get to a point where they think, okay, I don't get moved by anything normal now. We have to go further. So they'll stick a needle through their tongue and they'll meditate with that there. There's a some of them who think they're always thinking about sex, so they think that their cock is their worst enemy on their path to enlightenment. So they'll stick needles through the head of their cock. Ugh! My
Yeah, no, thank you.
mine's going like that just from me thinking about it. So they'll do that. So if you look at your Swedish chef as being a needle in your nipple or through your clitoris, that's pretty much something you can work with.
Hmm.
So be still. Watch yourself reacting, but don't respond to your responses,
Oh, that's what's happening is I'm responding to my responses for sure.
which is thoughts responding to thoughts,
Yeah.
responding to thoughts. You just take
Yeah.
that step back. That's all you've got to do is just remember to take that next step back and go, wow, what's responding here? And just watch it. And always be, as soon as you lose fascination, you will start to become involved. Not even, that's the wrong word. You become manipulable.
I got the word. Why would that happen? Why would you become
When you're fascinated, you are absolutely focused with all of your mind and attention, um, and you're just taking in at that point. When you stop becoming fascinated, you lose that position, and
mm,
you start to sink into it. You start to fall into what you were fascinated with, and it just takes you over. It's just the way
gotcha.
it is. Um,
Okay. Well, I can definitely work with that.
you're pretty damn close. You've got one or two habits to get rid of. That's it. You don't have any hurdles except for
What
your.
do you what do you see the habits as? What habits do I need to get
You have the habit of needing to comment and quantify, and you are in the habit of responding without taking stock first.
mm,
And these are normal habits of everyone. These are the
wow.
things we have to break. This is what the beads are for originally. Just reminds you to make sure every time you look in the mirror and you see your beads, it's meant to remind you to just take stock and see how many thoughts are starting to wind themselves around your brain and take you back into the world of insanity.
Mm,
There's nothing to be done about it. You just sit back and get back to that deep viewpoint, getting behind your thoughts. It's the difference between swimming in a river and being carried away by the river.
and you want to be carried away or you don't want to be carried away. You just want to be able to swim in the river. So the old story about getting in the river and just going with the flow, how does that
Doesn't no, that's crap. That's some fucking hippie probably said that. That's a pseudo wisdom. There's a lot of them.
There is so many. There is so many. It's hard sometimes to sort of. Somebody asked me the other day what my thoughts are now because I've gone from really staunchy religious Christian stuff to trying to understand some of the new agey, and I skipped through it really quickly because that didn't make any sense to me, to an edge of spirituality that was what everybody was preaching and teaching. And I'm just like, this doesn't get you anywhere either.
No.
This isn't what, I mean, this can't be what we're looking for. And then into the edge of where I ended up finding you. Um, I don't even know where I was going with that. It's just all so strange. I don't know. It's still muddled. This is where I get stuck. Is there's still Christian crap muddled in with, you know, it'll still pop up and be there.
See, this is one of your habits. You're looking at your
Yeah.
thoughts for answers. You won't get them in thoughts.
How do you so like the sun? I know you gotta step back and look at it. Some of that stuff is so subconscious, and I'm becoming conscious of it. I guess is why I even know it's there. But it'll like sneak in
It's only
and I'll
unconscious because you're not looking at it. That's all. It's not in some private little part of the brain that gets unlocked through hypnosis or drugs. Subconscious
no.
is just stuff you're not looking at. Like right now, the color of your car is subconscious. It's not now because I just brought it up. But if I hadn't said anything, the color of your car would be in your subconscious, not in a secret bin somewhere in another part of your brain. It's just that you're not looking at that information because it's not relevant right now. If I ask you what the color of your bedspread is, now it just became conscious, only because now you're looking at it.
Mm,
But it was still there. It's not subconscious. It's not a secret place that has to be unlocked. Anything is there. It's all conscious. It's like if you walk into a dark room with a torch, a flashlight with a narrow beam. When you point the torch to the table, you are now conscious of the table. Everything else in the room that you can't see would be regarded as subconscious. It's still there. You're still going to fall over it. You're still going to bash your shins on it until you point the torch on it. Then that becomes in your vision. So that's now in your consciousness. And that's it. So our attention is what makes us conscious of the moment. Anything that we're not placing attention on, we wrongly call subconscious. It's not subconscious.
it's just not in our focus at the moment.
Absolutely.
Simply not. The hidden, that's what they tell you. It's hidden. It's hidden from you because it's in your subconscious.
Yeah, and that's bullshit.
Okay.
Most
I
of it's
understand.
bullshit. If any teaching is complicated, it's wrong.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that at this point. I can see that. Let me ask you this one. I had so many things written down and I see our time's almost out already.
Oh, really? Fuck.
Yes, that's what I was just thinking. I was walking down a hallway yesterday, and this is just one incident. Excuse me. Um, and this one like made me jump because I was like, "Whoa!" I wasn't expecting it. Most times I can feel it before I can sense it before I feel it. So I'm walking down this hallway, and all of a sudden I hear, and it's narrow. There's stuff on either side. There's like a freezer on one side, and then there's just all this junk in space. You could fit into the space if you could get through the junk, kind of idea. But I'm walking down this narrow hallway going into another space to get some trays to put some, platters together. And I hear these footsteps running up behind me, like coming quick. So I was like trying to decide which direction, like, do I smash myself against the wall? How do I get out of whoever's coming up behind me's way? They were clearly in a hurry. I couldn't feel them, but I heard them coming that time. And it got so close so fast, like inside, I could feel my insides jump. And so I turned around and looked to see who was there, and there's nobody there. And I'm like, who is this? I always ask, who is this? What do you want? I go behind me. And I didn't hear anything. And a lot of times I'll actually hear something. I'll get an answer. Um, I didn't hear nothing. And I was just like, whoa, what the heck was that? What was that? Like, why do I? So in my house when I was a child, when I was probably middle school, I was like maybe between 13 and 18. And I lived in the same room most of my life when I was a kid. There was something down in that room that would sit on my bed, and I could feel it sit down. I could feel it stand up. I never talked to it because I didn't know I could back then. But even my little brother would be like, "Do you ever feel what is that that's chasing us up the stairs?" He goes, "Like when you go to walk up the stairs, and then you have to run up the stairs because it's coming to get you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I get that same thing." I never quite figured it out, but um, it evacuated, is I think what we were calling it, when they redid the basement. So they, stripped the basement, and all of a sudden that feeling wasn't there anymore. But all the time with that kind of stuff. What would you say that is? How do you look at that sort of thing?
That's a ghost.
Well, so there is ghosts. There is. I didn't know how you thought about that from.
Well, ghost isn't a spirit. They're very different things, complete opposites, actually.
Okay.
A ghost isn't alive, a spirit is.
Oh, interesting.
So I'll give you a very, very short story, a true story, but that kind of answers this. When I first began with all of this stuff and I started coming back to the West, because I would go to the Himalayas, learn stuff, come back to the West, earn some more money, and then go back to the Himalayas because they can't afford to feed you. They can't afford to, they need money. So
Mhm.
if a Westerner is going to go and stay over there, you need to have money. Anyway, one of the jobs I did when I went back to Australia was being a ghost hunter because I thought, anyway,
Really?
yeah, that's where I
Oh, how
started. I was
funny.
very young, I became a monk at 14, so I would have been 15 or 16 when I was doing this. Um, I went and there was a new, in a very, very old part of Tasmania, there was a new little shopping centre was built with a car park. And very, very quickly after it was built, people started seeing this woman in white with no feet walk across the car park, and she would bend over and disappear into the earth. And lots of people saw this. It was very strong. So I got called in. Very, very long story short, what happened was before the car park, before the shopping centre, there was an old estate home with a courtyard in the middle, and in the middle of the courtyard there was the well, the family well, and all the
Mm.
bedrooms in this house used to face towards the courtyard. And then one night, one moonlit night, the mother of the family walked out and committed suicide. She dived headfirst into the well and died. And her young 13-year-old daughter just happened to be up looking at the full moon, and she saw it, saw her mother kill herself. Now, the horror of that was such that her little brain couldn't handle the horror and couldn't handle what all the other shit that came with it. So she cast it out into what's called a thought form. And this is what other people see. So if this little girl's brain is working on, let's say, I don't know, 150 megahertz, that's the frequency, then anyone else in the world who also thinks on that same frequency, 150 megahertz, will see that ghost, like tuning your TV or your radio station in. So 100 years later, we've got a car park, and in the car park, they built up the bitumen. I don't know what you call it over there, the bitumen, yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
tar.
land.
That was
Yeah.
built up, and that's why you couldn't see her feet. They were underneath the tar.
Oh, how funny.
And of course, when she bent over and disappeared, she'd gone into the well. So you were seeing exactly what the young daughter had seen. She'd projected this out, this picture, and that's what other people were seeing 100 years later, probably even still today. So that's a ghost. So ghosts aren't alive, but they're there and they're created by other people's minds. Um, they can interact, but they don't know they're interacting. A spirit is absolutely alive. The spirit is what's in you. That's what you are. You are spirit, looking through an ego, looking through the eyes. That's what you are. And that's very, very much alive.
Are there bodiless spirits roaming around then that can interact with you?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Difficult to see, but yeah, definitely. And there are also other beings, other entities.
Yeah.
It's once you start to use your third eye externally, like right now, your third eye is what you're using to see your thoughts and your dreams and your imagination.
Right.
It sees things that doesn't require sunlight. It can see
Right.
things that we would consider invisible. Once you expand that outside of your head, you start to see things out here that these
Yes.
eyes can't see, and
So
you will see a lot of that. I
I see a lot of that. I have my whole life. And I
You
really,
are already, you have been an enlightened mystic at some point in the past, and religion has caught hold of you at a young age in this lifetime, and it's fucked you up. But you still retain some of the skills. You still see
yeah,
things, you still feel things, you still hear things. So you're right on the edge. You've just got to jump out of your doubt. You've got to jump out of the ego and stop responding, stop doubting.
stop responding, stop doubting. Okay. About the time you think you have, it all starts over again. Have you ever noticed that? You think you're like, oh, had a couple good days in a row, and then all of a sudden, Johan shows up.
Sometimes the brain gets tired. It's like a walkie-talkie. I can talk to someone a mile away with this thing. If they thought that my voice was actually coming from their walkie-talkie, if they thought the walkie-talkie was a living entity, they've got it totally fucking wrong. But my point is this: as the speaker, I can talk to you as long as your walkie-talkie has got battery power in it.
Hmm.
I've got as much energy as can be, but if your walkie-talkie battery runs out, you can't use it. You won't be able to hear me anymore. You won't be able to learn from me. We won't be able to talk to each other until your battery gets recharged. And it's the same with the brain. As spirit, you can talk to the outside world till the cows come home. But the brain, the walkie-talkie, the interface that allows you to do that will get tired because it's part of matter. Matter gets tired. And on those days, the full power of spirit isn't getting through. Some
Right.
days the brain will just be tired, and there's nothing you can do about that. Just rest up.
Rest.
Even the Dalai Lama, I've heard the Dalai Lama say, look, on some days, the brain just won't shut up. Don't do battle with it. Just go and do something else. Don't bother trying
Mhm.
to meditate. Nothing wrong with it.
Oh, oh, good. Okay. I feel so bad then. Yeah, I forced myself to sit down and try, and it's just like, ugh. Okay.
And don't train yourself to rely on going somewhere and sitting down in funny positions for an hour a day.
Oh
Don't
no. Yeah, I don't
just
do
use
that.
every minute of every day. Just bring yourself back to that calm center. What's your brain doing stupid things? What's your brain thinking horrible thoughts? What's your brain wanting to stab the Swede in the throat with a knife? But
We actually had this conversation the other day. Like, who's going to do it? Who wants the task? Because nobody wants to talk to him. Nobody. That's horrible. That's so sad.
everyone in Sweden is like that though.
Ugh,
They don't
ugh.
talk to each other. They don't acknowledge
Yeah.
each other.
Are you getting closer to moving? But you had said you were thinking about moving.
I'm still waiting on the visa people here.
Ah,
So I'm not sure. I know it's shocking, but I don't even know where I'm going to move to. I don't have anywhere to go to if I get kicked out of Sweden. So we'll see what
yeah,
happens. And I'm not a millionaire, so it's not like I can just go and buy a home somewhere because I can't.
right.
But that whatever. I've made it this far through life. I'm sure I'll be fine.
Yeah, something always shows up. That's what we keep saying. We have nowhere to go and all day to get there. We don't want to be here, but we have nowhere else to go. So here we sit. We're like, all right, well, till something else happens.
Yeah. Well, you've got yourself to work on. You've got plenty to do.
Yeah,
What's so
yeah,
in the watching of Christy Mattoon, you will have freedom, absolute freedom, eventually. Not
yeah.
not too far in the future either. You're very close, Christy. Where does the name Mattoon come from? I can't picture that one at all.
Oddly, I believe it's Swedish. I think
Oh gosh,
he's part Sweden. Um, it's that whole area.
the Nordic area.
Yeah, yeah, and he's a tall was, really brutal looking in his youth. They used to call him Golar because of his size. His shoulders were so broad, and his, I
Wow.
mean, right, blue eyes, blonde hair, the whole the whole nine, dark skin. If he's in the sun, dark skin. But life has taken its toll, and now he looks like a bent over old. And I'm just like, what are you doing to yourself? Like, why? And it's all his thoughts with his daughter. Just
Mm.
can't stop it. So I'm like, okay, well, if I can get control of mine, at some point you're going to catch on to this vibration of that he won't listen to me. He won't. Nothing I say makes sense. And I'm like, I know it does. I'm crazy. I'm crazy. It's all right. It's all right. So on we go. On we go.
Are you okay, Christy?
I am. I want to say I'm beyond okay. Like it's very strange. It is very, um, like lovely, like to the point of emotional.
Yeah, wonderful. Oh,
I don't know how to describe it.
don't. I can see it. You don't have to describe it. Your face is describing it. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That is so cool.
it's calm. I think it's beyond anything I've ever felt before.
Beautiful. That's all there is to it. Just maintain that, stay with that, be with that.
I wanted to tell you about my experience with the past life regression we did, but we don't have time, so we'll save that for another. And I want to do some more of that because I'm finding it hard to get back there. And I think it's just my doubt and my ego getting in the way. But that was quite crazy. That whole thing has been crazy.
It's all right. We,
Crazy.
we will revisit that. Don't you worry. You'll.
Okay.
Is it quarter past?
Oh no way. Time is moving so fast. Jump off. I bless you. I thank you. I love you. You're amazing. This is wonderful.
I love you too, Christy, very, very much. You're doing extremely well. Don't let the Swede get to you. The
No,
Swede, believe it or not, is the best tool you have at the moment.
I'm thinking that's why I keep standing there.
Yeah,
I could go all the way across the kitchen, but I haven't yet. I'm like, okay, be here. We'll get it.
just be with it. Watch the person, watch your ego's response, and just be fascinated. And then ask questions. If you have to think, ask questions like, why do I respond to this guy like this? Is
Yeah.
he just being the sort of person that I don't want him to be? Is he what I don't expect to be in my kitchen? Why? Why are you responding that way? And you'll find that the answer is very, very laughable.
Okay. That's going to be today's job. I'm going
That's
to
today's job. Yeah, yeah.
go in there and do that today. Yeah, because we're both there again today. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure talking to you, Christy.
Okay.
You take
All right.
care.
All right.
Bye
See you
bye.
next time.